Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is August 14, 2022. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Rick Greenwald. Where in the heck you calling in from, Rick?
I'm actually right now in Olympia, Washington, which is not where I live. This is just where I am now.
Olympia, Washington, man. I had one of my favorite uncles lived there. It's a great town. So the first question, Rick, is what's the best thing for a human being?
Well, I actually think best is really hard to answer because best, of course, depends on context, who's asking, who's responding. But I will tell you what I think the most human thing for a human being to do is. And that is, I think the most human thing that human beings can do is for two people to communicate different points of view and come to some kind of accommodation. That to me is the most human thing anyone can do. It's the source of everything great. Unfortunately, it seems that large segments of the population have kind of lost that ability, and even worse, don't care about it. But I work in a job where I work with other people who are very, very smart in the area, and we'll have hour, 2 hour meetings where we'll start and we'll argue about everything. We'll argue about it fiercely, and at the end of the time, we go like, "Okay, we've reached a point that we agree on."
Yeah.
It just fills my heart when that happens. It's the best thing that can happen, which is why when I talk, I really enjoy talking to people. Well, excuse me. I look forward to talking to people with differing points of view in the hope that we can actually communicate this. And over the past 5 years, which has been a time of greater and greater polarization, I still really enjoy talking to intelligent people with a different point of view so I can learn. Because unless I understand why they feel the way they feel, I can't be sure of the way I feel.
It's
Now,
great.
unfortunately, a lot of times people just shut it down, right? So there is no conversation. I have a number of friends who, one of whom is quite liberal, but conservative on some social issues. Another friend who unfortunately passed away, who was quite conservative, but I greatly respected his ideas and intellect, and that was just great talking to him.
Yeah, that's the commonality. I like that. That's beautiful. Well put. I agree with you. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Oh boy. I mean, first of all, reading, as opposed to being told. Let me back up. Reading, and especially if I can read and then interact with the person making those things, because I part of what I do in my life and part of what I do in my work is kind of always have my bullshit meter turned up on high, you know. So I like it when I can look at something, be informed, and then explore it further to make sure that it's grounded in a way that I think is appropriate.
Let's go to reading just for a second. A tangent. Did you grow up a reader because your parents were doing it as an example? They told you to read or on your own?
Oh boy, that's a hard one. I, I I think some combination of both. I mean, we were a host. We had books there. I
Yeah.
still remember some of the books that were there. Lawrence Dumont, who I guess was a very popular author back in the 40s and 50s. And and not sorry to say, Reader's Digest condensed
Yep.
books where I read Travels with Charlie for the first time and all 40 pages of it in the condensed book. It was thought of as something which was a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think my parents sat around at night and read books. They read the newspaper for sure. And Jerry, when we grew up, television was kind of a new thing. You know,
Yeah.
People didn't watch television 8 hours a day when we were kids because, frankly, there wasn't anything to watch for 8 hours a day. So we had to get that information. Now, my favorite form of information is when I can take in a lot and synthesize it with what I think and what I believe in my background, and come up with something which I think is truthful or near to. You
It's
know,
beautiful.
um,
Beautiful.
that
Let's go on. Yeah, let's go on because a lot of this stuff you'll come full circle. You'll be able to suss it out. Why do you think humans
Oh, you mean
collect
I
or
disagree with myself? I'm sure that will happen. Go ahead.
gather? Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Boy, that's another tough question. I mean, I think they're just at this point in our evolution. I think it's just because they're inherently curious. You
Yeah.
know, obviously there was a time when information could keep you alive, right? This is the plant not to eat. Here's where the animals that are going to kill you are going to be. Blah blah blah. We're way, way, way away from there. But I would think that pretty much in the past 300 or 400 years, when written materials have been fairly widely available, it's been curiosity as much as
Yeah.
anything.
It is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
Well, I think it's innate, but it's crushed. So I mean, you have people who no longer display that innate quality, but that's not because it's not innate. It's because they have decided or been convinced that more information is not going to contribute
Do
to their feeling better or being better.
yeah. Do thoughts create emotions?
I think it's the other way around. Um,
Wow.
I don't know if you've read much of Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. Maybe the most
Have-
impactful book I've read in 20 years. Won a Nobel Prize for behavioral economics on it. And he talks, thinking fast and slow has to do with thinking slow has to do with reasoning, okay? And figuring things out. Thinking fast is the instinctual reaction, the gut feeling.
Yeah.
And he and his associate did tons of experiments. And we all think that we reason these things through and come to an answer. And basically, all these experiments showed that is absolutely not true. We react in a gut way. Now, we sometimes will go back and justify it with thinking slow after that. And certainly we come to our gut reactions. You know, what they said is it's extraordinarily rare for anyone to reason something through and change their gut reaction. That almost never happens. But I think what does happen is you'll make a gut decision, you'll have a gut reaction, and then you'll think it through. And if that gets filled out, next time you get reaction, you'll be different because you've educated yourself that way. But that is not. They say in this book, and they say it over and over again. It is extraordinarily rare for that to happen. I think most people never do it. I don't do it that often, but you know, we evolve through these things. You know, and there
Yeah.
comes a point where I'll give you an example if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
like I said, I always like to hear the other side of things. So I always talk to people who have a different point of view. I think with the shooting in, I decided I'm not thinking this through anymore. I'm done with guns. My stance on this is all guns have to go away. By the way, wildly impractical stance will never happen. But as far as what I believe and what I want to happen, that's it. I'm done. And this was a situation where my emotional response was such, this just can't happen anymore. And if guns are gone, it certainly won't happen like this anymore. That's a pretty rare thing for me, but that is an example of the recent past where it happened.
Yeah. Your observations of humans in general. It's a stupid question. No, it's both, but are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
We are more feeling beings. I think thinking is a hobby. Feeling is a
That is a great one. Okay, let's carry on because it's good. I fill in the blank, Rick. I don't know what I think until I
reason it through.
wow. So, I got it from McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. The question next is, can humans think without language?
Oh, absolutely. Not only can they think without language, I think that there is a level of meaning above language. I mean, this is something which I've long thought about. As you know, I used to make films many years ago, and one of the issues that came about is how could my personal experience in my context affects someone else. How can that happen? I have friends. I have a friend who's my age. He likes music. We have a lot of the same things, but he happens to be black. Okay, so he grew up in the 50s and 60s of America that we had as a black child rather than a white child. They're like, how can we communicate? That context is so different. By the way, not good or bad, just different. But I
Yeah.
believe there's a higher level where things are expressed and radiate down in all sorts of manifestations. That's why, for instance, music is so important, because you know what? That means something. What does it mean? It depends how you take it in.
Yeah.
But it means something, and it's a way. This is something I try to do. Make something which has meaningful at a level that everyone can connect their own thing in. And I had this experience, and I'm sure you probably have, of people coming up to me and telling about some work that I did, and telling me this fabulous story about what it meant to them. Had nothing to do with what I did. I never
Yeah.
thought any of those thoughts at all. But if it meant something to them, that's important. That's important. That meant there was substance there, even if I didn't, in my own context way, put it there. It's still there.
Yeah. That's when the artist creates their art, it's no longer theirs. Mid-career, McLuhan updated his most famous aphorism, medium is a message or medium is a massage, to the
Mhm.
user is the content. That's what you just talked about. The user is the content. So anyways, it was beautiful what you said, and it led perfectly into this. Chomsky says that a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do, Rick, when language breaks down? When language doesn't work? What do you do?
This is a question I get at work all the time. By the way, I'm an industry analyst in the IT field, so it has nothing to do with any of this, right? But what happens in that case is I ask the person to show me, not to tell me, show me.
Yeah.
Because that they can do. One of the big problems that people have, for instance, in IT and users is a communication gap, an impedance mismatch in what they say. One
Yeah.
person says something, the other person repeats it back. It's the same words. It means
Yeah.
something completely different. And even if it means the same thing, the context supporting it is so different that following through on it creates a completely different outcome. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I tell people is don't ask people what they want. Ask them to show you the result that they want to get. Because
Beautiful.
this not only makes things clearer, but it means that you, as the person trying to get there, have complete freedom.
Yeah.
Something I have hated in my entire life in every job I've had is if anyone ever tries to tell me how to do something, I do not react well. Okay? I, Tell me what you want, and I will
Yeah.
deliver it. I'll deliver it fast, I'll deliver it good. But don't tell me how to do it. Okay? I have to be able to figure that out on my own.
It's good. You're smart. This is really good. You get what I'm after. Two questions, Rick, from Alan Turing, 1950s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
No. Um,
Go ahead. You want to elaborate?
yeah. God, isn't that good enough? Can I just say no?
That's
I'm kidding.
that,
Let me,
that's fine. Let's move
no, let
on.
me,
Yeah,
I know,
no,
I can, no, 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 Jerry, I can elaborate. I'm just kidding. Um,
yeah,
I think thinking is us trying to figure out what our soul is. So it's around the soul. It's not the
it's
soul
around.
produces thinking. It's thinking kind of helps us understand the soul. There are times you've had it, I'm sure I've had it, where you disappear, right? You plunge into something that is so all-encompassing, everything that denotes you as a person goes away. To me, that's kind of a pure soul thing, and
Yeah,
that's something which, by the way, that's one of the wonderful things about music, that it allows you to do that, right?
totally.
So
No,
thinking
that's good.
is good.
You anticipated an upcoming question, so you can elaborate. Let's get to this. The second
Okay.
Turing question is, can machines think?
Well, I guess it depends what you mean by think. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to qualify that.
Yeah.
Machines can reason things out. Machines can taxes. Machines can do all of this. But keep in mind, at its core, the way machines make decisions is something taught to it by humans and encoded in rules that they follow. I mean, machines on one hand are incredibly stupid. They know binary states. That's it. Now, when you have binary states and multiply it by billions of pathways, it starts to seem like they can think. Now, one would say that means that they can't think. However, we all have context too. That's
Yeah.
not that different from us. So I think they can think, but it's not something, some people worry about the machines taking over or rebelling. That doesn't bother me. We have lots of other problems to worry about.
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Happiness.
Okay, here's the question you anticipated, Rick. You must have ESP. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we creating it?
Well, I think you have to say it creates it. I mean, there's a very large argument about that. But I think what we're really talking about is two different things, okay? Individual consciousness, I believe, is created by the brain. But I also think there's a larger consciousness and a super consciousness or whatever, a universal soul that we've all been tapped into. And it all comes through and helps provide almost like the raw materials that we create our consciousness.
Yeah.
But individual
Does
consciousness definitely comes from the brain, I
yeah,
think.
it's good. Does the brain wait, what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of light. I
The
mean,
the
thought is based on electrical impulses, which is based on the speed of light, which we can't go faster. However, it's an interesting question you ask because many years ago I had this belief that we all have had these incidents of precognition, right, or deja
yeah.
vu or something like that.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe because there's amount of time it takes for electrical impulses to move through your body and the neurons and get to your brain, right? So there's always some amount of separation from the time something happens and the time you perceive it happen.
Yep.
That's physics, okay? There's no way around that. What I thought, I don't think I do anymore, but what I thought was maybe there's a way for us to circumvent and to get to something before those electrical impulses hit us. At this point, I don't know if that's true, but I did think that at one time.
Yeah. Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded to her and said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
To dismantle the master's house?
Yeah, again, you put it in the context you want. You can just say, what new tool do you gravitate towards, but you can put it into that context. Yes.
I think the tool is community.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't I don't know if I completely agree because obviously there's a projection here saying you can't fix rules by making new rules, right? That's kind of the underlying thing that they're saying there. Um, but community can supersede individual rules, and community working together can, in theory, accomplish anything. And this is one thing, by the way, we're facing some dark days here, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that certainly if things are as bad as we sometimes fear they are, things are bad. But I think that really a lot of that is built on a very fragile foundation that community can just sweep away. So I'm not entirely discouraged about where we are in the world today. You know, if where we are, if all this absolute craziness ends up with us making a significant shift in how we think about things, we're way ahead.
Yeah.
Now, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
But
what new toy do you suggest?
boy, you mean to accomplish this or just in general to play with?
And again, you put it in the context you want, either one.
Well, there's this little thing you can buy on Amazon. I forget the name. It's like $100. It's a little ball, but it's a synthesizer. And when you turn it different ways, it makes different rhythms and different noises. And you can actually you can lay down loops with it and stuff. So you can actually do entire musical things with just this little ball. So I haven't gotten it yet because I think if I get it, that will be the end of all my time. But that looks like a great toy to me.
What's it called? Do you know?
Oh,
anyways,
you know what? Give me a sec. I'll look up while we're talking. Well, go ahead.
No, don't worry. You can tell me afterwards. It's fine. I like the mystery, but anybody could find it. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Nothing.
That's good.
I go to bed with a clean conscience.
That is good. Way to go, dude. Marshall McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound the poet that artists are the antenna of the race. Artists, I mean musicians, painters, writers. Artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we can learn to cope with what we don't like about the inventions. So, Rick, I asked you the question McLuhan probed his whole career. Why do we humans ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Because they're presented with something much easier to grasp than the hidden psychic underlying. Now, I don't want this to come off like this conspiracy guy, right? But I think it's really hard for, oh, by the way, it's called an Orba by Artefon.
ORBA?
ORBA by Artefon, ARTIPHONE. Hey, Jerry, are they going to send me one now?
So, yeah, this is interesting. So you really got I love how you reworded the underlying psychic something. You use different words. I like that. But, people ignore these because it's easier. Is that what you were saying?
No, people ignore these because it's not the most obvious thing.
Yeah.
We're all really busy. I mean, I'm really busy, you're really busy, and a lot of people are way busier than we are, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of just let it hit you in the face, and whatever is the most obvious thing is going to happen. But a lot of times, and by the way, this goes to the artists too, and to the vendors too, they don't necessarily understand the underlying effect it's going to have.
Exactly.
I mean, look at everything the internet has done. Some of it is what people did. A lot of it was like, whoa, where did this come from?
Yeah. So do artists have moral obligation?
To who? To what? To what? I mean,
yeah. Well, you answered a question with a question. You win, Rick. That's what this series is all about, inventing new questions.
Yeah, you should know, Jerry, I basically almost exclusively do not believe in the concept of an evil person. Okay.
Wow, you really anticipated. Wait, hold it. We're getting to that in about 4 or 5 questions. Let's hold that because I'm serious. It is amazing because you've never listened to any of my interviews.
Nope.
Yeah, so you don't know that this is like 3 questions away, that exact question. So I always throw out ESP, but it's some sense. Okay. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I think old ideas improperly used.
Yeah.
Because old ideas have a lot of a gravitational force with them, as it were. So an old idea which people accept and then it's twisted or somewhat bent you get to a different approach, that can have a lot more power, which is scarier to me than a new idea. I mean, there's this great saying that was attributed to Linus Pauling, although I think he didn't say it. I've read other sources for it, but it says a new idea does not take over by convincing the world of its brilliance. A new idea takes over by having people grow up taking it for granted and old people dying off who don't believe it.
Yeah.
So that's a longer process. But so that makes me not worried about new ideas. It's more old ideas maybe being promoted as new with a different guise.
It's well done. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Yeah, I was in my crib and I had a balloon that I had blown up and I put it through the crib bars and I let it go. And what do you know? It flew across the room. And damn, I wanted that.
That's cool. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Memory is absolutely a blessing. Because by the way, I'm going to say something which is very entitled and privileged, and I know that when I say it. We have the ability to remember what we want, okay? And I say that as someone who doesn't suffer from depression or doesn't suffer from other crippling psychic illnesses that take this out of your control, okay? So I don't want to make light of that. But for me, I can go back through my memories and create whatever I want.
Yeah. Tell me someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an impact on you like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
Oh boy. Inside my immediate family is hard because I don't have that large an immediate family. Um, Outside my immediate family, I had a guy I worked with who was unfortunately passed on, but he really, no, I'm going to tell you something. All right. Very impactful thing I remember to this day. And fortunately, I was able to convey it back to the person who told it to me. Do you mind if I tell a brief story here?
Please go ahead. Of course.
When I was at the University of Michigan, I took a course on Near Eastern religion, taught by a guy named Luis Gomez, who I believe is passed at this point. But he, brilliant guy, full professor in his 30s, which at Michigan, that ain't so easy to do. You'd go into his study, you'd have a wall of books on Catholicism in Spanish, a wall of books on Buddhism in Sanskrit, and a wall of philosophical books in English. And he happened to be my section leader. So that means, 2 or 3 times during the semester, I sat down and talked to him. So we were talking one day, and we got done talking about the class, and we were just kind of chit-chatting. He said, "What do you want? What are you planning on doing?" He said, "Doctor, lawyer." I said, "No, that's too much responsibility. I think I want to be a teacher." And he said, "A teacher has more responsibility than either of those. Because
Jeez.
a doctor can save your life, but a teacher can make your life meaningful."
Wow.
And I have never forgotten that.
That is good. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Yeah, nominally Jewish. I mean, I was bar mitzvahed. We I don't know what the equivalent is, but we went to services on high holy days, but not keeping kosher or anything. I consider myself Jewish, even though I've never belonged to a synagogue or anything.
Do you pray, Rick?
No.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
You added something to this world.
Oh, that is so nice. I like that. Here it is. You anticipate it. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I think the second, I have a really hard time thinking someone sits down and says, "This is evil, I'm going to do." enemies. Okay. Even people who do things which are obviously evil, I think to some extent they are slaves to their impulses and they have to do something impulsively. And the fact that it's evil doesn't get in the way of that impulse. So I don't know. I don't believe that people are evil.
Yeah. I get that a lot. And I think that's good. The real hidden question here, Rick, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I set up with a few modern thinkers. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from The Mob and The Samurai, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. It's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is how do you, Rick, advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I think that's basically true. If you acknowledge them as your enemy, not if you acknowledge them as a human being, but if you acknowledge them as your enemy.
Yeah.
I think I don't, by the way, do you know the Avett brothers? Have you listened to them at all?
To the who?
The Avett brothers.
I know them, but don't know them well.
They're
Go ahead.
they're really good.
Yeah, I
But they
know that.
have a song that they typically close their concerts with called "No Hard Feelings," which is really getting all choked up just thinking about it. But one of the main lines in the chorus is "I have no enemies. I have no enemies." And I think when you think this person's my enemy, basically you have tied yourself up in knots of your own devising. Okay.
Yeah.
You have made them into a scarecrow against, one of my daughters I was talking to, and she was trying to get something done on the phone, and she got dropped off the line. She says that's because they didn't want to do it for me. And what I wanted to say to her was, they don't care enough about you to drop you off the phone for that reason. I mean, they're not your enemy. Okay, they're
Yeah.
they're people who make mistakes. Who let's take a horrible example. The police officers in Uvalde who stood outside that classroom while children were being killed. Right? They made a mistake. It was a really bad mistake that they shouldn't have made, but nonetheless, it's a mistake. They're not evil. They aren't the enemy. All you can do is say, let's try and let the most productive thing you can do if you see someone's on me is to figure out, why do I think they're my enemy?
Yeah. It's good.
There's an answer to that question.
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know what it is. It's different in every individual case. But
Right.
all I mean,
answer in general to that question, no matter what the situation. Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
maybe they're completely philosophically disagree with you, blah, blah, but that doesn't mean they're your enemy. That means they believe what they believe and it's different from what you believe. But I just
Well, that's Baba Ram Das says, I'm having a real hard time loving George Bush. It's like fill in the blank. I'm having a real hard time loving Putin or Trump or whoever.
yeah. Remember back when we thought George Bush was as bad as it could get? Doesn't that seem quaint?
It's like Krasner says, Bush pulls his mask back and it's Nixon. He goes, I'm back. And it's like, geez, we'll bring Nixon back and be like,
Oh,
anyway.
Are you kidding me? I mean, Nixon was an intelligent thinking person,
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay. Onward and upward. Rick, this is really fun. I really appreciate it. You really get it. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting life? Why don't we just live life?
If that's all you're doing, then yeah, you're in the wrong place. It's kind of like, why do I have to go look at Matisse's drawings of water lilies? I'll just go buy a water lily. Well, if you think that all Matisse is doing in the water lily paintings is painting water lilies, then you don't get it at all. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. The content of art, the content of fiction, the content of any of that is something which uses a representation of reality to illustrate other things. And reality is sometimes much more unruly than that. So we can't count on that. But if you're just looking at it, I mean, like it's like people who said when photographs came out, like art is dead. Now we have photographs. If anything, art took over photographs. I mean, the opposite happened, right? So
it's funny. Either Matisse or Cezanne said something like, if you paint your painting and you take it outside and put it in the bushes and it blends in, it's a good painting.
well, I guess, yeah. I mean, but those guys, like, they didn't paint representationally at all. And by the way, I
Right.
love them. I love that stuff. But I mean, it's not. This is. I'll tell you what, Jerry. This has been happening to me more and more and more as time goes on. I'm here in Portland, not Portland. I'm here in Olympia, Washington. I look out my door here, and there's pine trees and other trees and grass, and I see it growing, and I see the ledges, I see the lakes, and I think, like, Jesus, nature slash God slash time made this. It is so complex and so interwoven. I could never wrap my mind around.
Yeah.
And then there's us, okay? And we go into this astonishing thing and we lay down a thread of concrete and we put things on top of that to get us from one place to another fast, right? They're two different realities, but if anything, nature is more nuanced and complex, and we are finding out more about that seemingly every day.
Yeah. Very good. So let's walk through your career just briefly. What first attracted you to pursue? What was the first thing you studied at U of M, let's say? And then,
Oh,
I'm looking for the tipping points. And then you pursue IT, and then you pursue music. The tipping points where I can do that.
oh no, the tipping point is much easier than that, Jerry. Okay,
Okay.
so first of all, I want it to be known, and I'm not stepping back from this all. I have a Bachelor of General Studies, a
Me
degree which
too.
no, they,
BGS.
all right, BGS, which, and Jerry, that no longer exists. Okay, they
No, you know what?
discontinued.
I think it stands for Bachelor of General Stuff.
Right, right, and people, it's like, don't say BA. Like, I don't have a BA, I have a BGS. Okay, anyways, and surprisingly enough, I never found work as a general. Can you believe it? Um, so I kind of came out of school. I wanted to be an artist. I was a filmmaker. I moved to New York. I made films. I showed them, but there was a very direct tipping point, and I'll tell you exactly what it was. Um, I was living in New York. Well, two things happened. I was living in New York. And I had, I was working at a university, so that kind of academic path was open to me. But there were some things about I really didn't care for. It kind of bastardized what I loved into something different, and I would rather just keep loving it and do something else to make money. So then I tried to get involved in the film business, as a PA and stuff. I remember working this 18-hour day and getting $60 for the day, and I'm home sleeping, and I had this thought. I said, well, like I have like $3,000 in the bank. I said, well, I'll just use that till I run out of it, and then I'll die. And I thought, sounds good. So I said, okay, wait a second here. This is not a good thought pattern. Then I was living in New York on the Lower East Side on Fifth Street between Second and Third Avenue in a 400 square foot 2-bedroom apartment, third floor walk up with Jim Jubek. And I had this realization that at some point you are no longer living like a bum, you are a bum. So I thought I actually need to get some kind of work, that is going to provide a reliable source of income. And I thought, oh, I took a computer course. That was kind of fun. And this, of course, is in the early 80s. So I went back and got a 4-month program to learn how to to do computers, and I ended up getting a job with a vendor, and that was 40 years ago. And it's been a good career. I mean, it's an interesting career academically. And by the way, I didn't make many movies after that, but I could have. And I play music all I want because I can, but I just don't have to make money off.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking down or demeaning anyone who does that. I'm just saying, if I don't have to make money out of it, I can do whatever I want.
Yep.
I don't have to hustle. I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, just off the top, not too detailed, 3 filmmakers or films that said, "Hey, I want to pursue film," and 3 musicians or genres that said, "Hey, I want to make music."
Okay. George Landau was an independent filmmaker. Well, my
Well, he's
all-time hero. What?
well, George is experimental, really, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay,
my
go
my
ahead.
all my all-time favorite filmmaker in the world is Michael Snow, who I think is
Nice.
just fantastic. Always did. Do I hear a little
Yeah.
story about him? It's kind of funny, and it's a
Please.
really good. So I when I made films, I showed them in Toronto a lot. I had a lot of friends up in Toronto. And one day I was walking down the street in Toronto with my friends, and my friend said, "Oh, look, there's Mike. Let's go say hi." So we walked over and said hi to Michael Snow. And we just kind of made idle chit chat, because I knew some people in New York who he knew, and blah, 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 blah. Later that night, I was lying in bed. And this was back when I used to think about things when I went to sleep. I was lying in bed and I said, you met Michael Snow and you treated him like a normal human being. What's wrong with you? He's a great artist. Now, flash forward about 5 years. He came to Binghamton, University of Binghamton, where I was working in the film department. So I helped him get set up to show some films. We remembered, blah, blah, blah. And there was a party for him, as there frequently is when a guy does a show. And he's sitting on a couch. And I went up to him on the couch. I said, "Michael, I just want to tell you something. When I first met you, we just were casual friends, and that's okay. But I thought that was terrible because you're just this idol to me." And I said to him, "Sometimes when I get discouraged with how well my work is going, I say to myself, you'll never be as good as Michael Snow if you don't work harder." And he was really flattered. He just said, "That's so nice to hear." I mean, he wasn't embarrassed or anything. Um, so I I've always had that rule that if there's someone who I really whose work I really like, I will go up and talk to them. I will go up and tell them you're important to me.
Yeah.
So those were the filmmakers. What were the other ones?
They're
Oh,
just 3.
musicians. Number one has to be Iggy Pop. Um,
Yeah.
he's in a world of his own.
Yep.
And this is funny. It's kind of the other spectrum, but I think as someone who really moves people and really connects people, Bruce Springsteen's up there.
Cool.
And as far as a great artist, that would be Bob Dylan. So those are 3 different things. Not I got a million favorite artists, but
No, that's good.
those
Yeah. Let's go on because you'll be able to apply all these thoughts. A screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick said great art is not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
it is an artifact. Okay, the greatest intention of the world, if it's not properly put together and presented, makes no difference at all. I'm not going to like a piece of art is not going to impact me because of the intention behind it.
Yeah.
So I don't think intention has anything to do with it. Like you said earlier, once a work of art leaves the artist's hands, it's out of there.
Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much do you think of your audience when you're making your art?
Well, I don't really make art in that sense to display. Like I play music a lot, but mainly by myself. But when I'm starting to start playing out a little bit more publicly, and that's a very different experience because things which are very satisfying to me are not necessarily going to be satisfying to the audience. So I
Yeah.
have to think about this stuff differently.
That's mainly you're playing out with the ukulele.
Yeah.
Now you grew up playing what main instrument? All or
No. I was the world's worst 30-year guitar player.
worse what?
I was the worst 30-year experienced guitar player.
Guitar. So then what attracted you to the uke?
Oh, easy. So I had reached a point that and by the way, I was shackled. I couldn't break out of, the kind of path that I was going on, and I couldn't really progress on it. So I reached a point where I couldn't make music with the guitar that was music I wanted to hear or wanted to sing with or wanted to, play around, right? So I had more or less stopped playing. And I was in Hawaii, and I go fairly frequently, and I was at a swap meet, and I picked up a six-string ukulele, and I just started to play it. And you may know that a ukulele, the tone, the notes are the same relationship as they are on a guitar, so all the chords work the same way. They're different chords. A G on a guitar is a C on a ukulele, but it's still the same thing. It's a chord. And I started to play, and I kind of stumbled into some things. And I said, oh, this is music I kind of like. So I bought the ukulele and started to play it. Was playing a half hour, an hour a day just because I liked to, just because I was exploring all sorts of different types of music to play on the ukulele. No Hawaiian music at all, just rock and roll, soul, that sort of stuff. And two things happen. You play for an hour a day, you get better. It's kind of inevitable unless you're really boring. And the other thing was I started to have these breakthroughs like, oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? For some reason, I was much freer about it than I was on the guitar. And it's been now 11, 12 years, and it's still happening. I'm still having breakthroughs. I'm still learning.
That is cool. Let's stay on music for a second. First of all, McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness, like knife and fork extends our teeth. Shutter in a camera might be an extension of our eyelid, like even non-tangible, like philosophy or religion might be an extension of consciousness. What does the ukulele extend? What humanness?
Something inside my heart, okay?
Nice.
Something about touching those strings and it ringing out really resonates with me. And it's funny, when I started playing ukulele, by the way, Jerry, I can't see the string out anymore. If I click on the link again, will it bring me back?
Yeah, it's up in your browsers. You can go that way too.
Oh, okay.
You just go to
I'm sorry. I got
yeah,
it. Thanks. Okay. Um, Something about that really resonates with me. It feels right. It
that's
feels,
a great answer. Yeah. No,
and I think
it
what I
even
was,
is what you're saying is it extends your heartstrings.
yeah. Because when I started, it's funny, when I started, I would do effects and stuff, and that's kind of in some ways, that's a cheater's thing. I'm going to throw some wild stuff on here to make it sound more interesting and better rather than playing more interestingly. But my wife actually really prefers me to just play acoustic and sing. So I've been doing that, and that has forced me to kind of, okay, what more can I do here? Not like, what more can I do to expand the horizon? It's just like, well, what's a little more interesting?
Well, that leads perfectly, Rick. What's the function of music?
For me,
Yeah.
I just, it makes me happy to hear it,
Yeah.
Um, I have a friend. I've become friends with an older couple on Hawaii, and the woman's always posting stuff on Facebook about music and how it connects everyone. And I'm in, you know. This is interesting too, because it's both the way I play and the way I record music. When I play music, I am worshiping the oversoul that the music represents.
Yeah.
You know, I am paying it my respects. Okay. And when I see someone playing music, if they are not doing that, it's blasphemy. I
Yeah.
don't like it, you know. When I see people committing to music, even if I don't like, I mean, we were just out today and there was a guy band playing at this ski resort that we were taking a hike at, and it's just an average band, but you know, they were committed to what they were doing. I said, okay, that's good. I
Yeah.
That's fine, you know. And you could be the
That's
biggest star in the world, but if you're just mailing it in, sorry, got no time.
yeah, that's John Cage said he learned from his teacher the function of music was to soothe the soul and make it susceptible for divine intervention. Which is
That's pretty good.
that's it. I love it. And so my friend talks about the 3 T's in music: technique, theory, and taste. Technique, you can learn how to do it. Theory is what chords or whatever. How does one acquire taste?
You see what you like. You know, what is it that I like? What sounds good? You know, and also you have a little guy on your shoulder who keeps you from being lazy about it. You know, it's kind of like, can I have cookies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? I really like cookies. But you really now, by the way, there may be people who are just so much more talented and so much more advanced than me. This doesn't apply to them. But for me, it's kind of like what worked here, what didn't work here, what goes to the next thing, not what's clever or what's popular or you know. And it's funny. I recently worked out an arrangement of a song on my uke. It was "Tracks of My Tears" by Smokey Robinson.
Ooh.
Terrific, yeah,
Ooh.
terrific song. Right? And I remember my wife said, "Haven't you been playing that for a long time?" I said, "No, I just learned it, but I should have been playing it for a long time because
Yeah,
that's like right in my sweet spot, you know."
that
And
is
that is taste. That's you know.
yeah. No, tears of a clown. I said to my friend today, we talk songwriters all the time together. And I just said, it's like what Ry Cooder told me. Mother Popcorn by James Brown is a perfect song. Like those 2 songs are perfect. You
She
don't
may she may be cute, but she's a substitute because you're the permanent one.
woo.
Jesus, yeah, you're like wow.
Okay, Copeland says the 4 main ingredients of music are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. How do you navigate the 4? Or do you emphasize or like one more than other? You think, oh, they're all 4 equal? Go ahead.
I think rhythm probably comes first, but that's something which you kind of set up and then it's there. That's the foundation, right? Um, Melody, you know, it's there and you use it. But as someone whose main explorations are vocal, I move around on that. What was the? And I know the tone color is one, but what's the other one? Jerry?
Harmony.
Melody, rhythm, tone control,
Ha-
harmony. Um, I don't know much about harmony, so I can't count on that. But tone control is actually really, really, you know,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I so I have never liked what they call the bel canto singers, like Judy Collins. Okay, I just don't like it because it's just this pure sound. It's just
Yeah.
melody. There's no color there at all. On the other hand, I love Aretha. I love Otis Redding because it's
Yeah.
all about color for them, right?
Yeah.
That's who
The
I aspire to be.
yeah. Tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh.
Laugh? I can tell you one that makes me cry or makes me send shivers down my spine every
That's all
time.
right. Go ahead.
The guitar solo in Calvary Cross by Richard Thompson that's on the Watching the Dark album. There is this point where and I don't know what it technically is. I think he's going from one modal way to another modal way, but he slides down into it, and it's like my spine just twists into a knot every time.
That's amazing. It's well put.
I've heard it 100 times still.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. There's a line McLuhan says, and I would love to hear your reaction to it. Song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. Any comment?
Interesting. I can't disagree with that. And of course, there's one big, though, kind of question mark. So that you look at Asian languages, in particular Chinese, which are all tone based, right? There's a lot more tone based than English. English is more, and Western languages are more pacing, rhythm based. And certainly Chinese music is very different from Western music, but I don't know if it's a direct connection.
Yeah. Thelonious Monk said there are no wrong notes. Any comment?
Well, I agree, of course. As someone who plays a lot of wrong notes, I would have to. I'd be an idiot not to. I'll tell you a great comment though that a guy named Benny Chong made. If you're not familiar with Benny Chong, go look him up on YouTube. I think he's the greatest jazz ukulele player in the world. He will just, your jaw will drop when you see him play. Because he has technique like you wouldn't believe, and just incredible musical sense too. But it's funny. I went to a performance and talk he gave me. He said, "I make more mistakes than anybody."
Yeah.
Because he's always trying new stuff. And I know myself, one of the major sources of my learning on ukulele is when my fingers tell me to do something different that I didn't think I should do. And they go somewhere else and go like, wait a second, that was really good.
That is good. That's intuition. Miles talks about the space between notes. Even George Clinton says funk is the absence of.
Yeah.
Talk about the space between notes.
Well, to me, the space between notes is really about rhythm and phrasing, and it's wildly important. In some ways, I think it's more important than everything else. An example of this is Bob Dylan as a singer. I mean, people say, "Oh, you can't sing." Bob Dylan's a fucking brilliant singer. I mean, his phrasing and the way he intones, it's just, you can listen to some stuff and it just takes your breath away how good he is. Now, he doesn't have a good voice, okay? And it's actually gotten worse. But even today, the way he phrases stuff, and especially when you hear him sing, he's just trying new stuff all the time. I mean, I saw, it was really funny. This is probably 15 years ago, but he was on tour with the Dead, and Joan Osborne was singing with the Dead, and she came out and tried to sing a duet with him, but it was like, I felt so bad for her. I don't think he has any idea where he's going next, and he does in his heart, but he doesn't in his head.
Yeah.
So to try and kind of sing harmony along with him, good luck.
Yeah. I love.
But he's a brilliant singer, and that's what we're talking about.
I agree with you, and I love it. If dogs run free, why can't we?
Across the seas of time.
Yeah. Okay. Ben Ratliff, jazz writer, says, as it has long functioned among jazz players as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in one single note. So it's like he said, Miles is, these are adjectives I'm after for you, and Miles is fragile and pointed. Coleman Hawkins is ripe and mellow. Coltrane was slightly undercooked and urgent. If you could have a jazz writer say your sound in two adjectives, what would you be honored to hear him say?
soulful and connected.
Nice. That is so good.
By the way, it's funny when you were saying that, Jerry, because I was listening to the band recently, who I just every time I come back to them, I'm more and more impressed. And listening to Richard Manuel, and his voice is it's just heartbreaking. I mean, every note, you just feel, and look, I mean, he he had an up and down life to say the least, and
Yeah.
lots of drug problems and stuff. But still, man, it just knocks you over when you hear it. And
Yeah.
like you said, one note, one note.
One note. Yeah. So just flipping to movies for film for a second here. I talked to Michael Apted 40 years ago in the 80s when MTV was breaking. I said, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it really flourished in the 80s to the point where Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV. Michael Apted told me why? Because we've learned to take in information faster. So I asked the question with the bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
We're brainwashed to believe we can. What you can, what you can do is change the way your attention focuses to skip over stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry, if you remember, there was a brief time where people said, "Oh, put 2 frames of a Coke bottle in the middle of a trail, and everyone will run out and get Coke." Like it was
Yeah.
horseshit, you know.
Yeah.
So look, the culture can change fast, but we're human beings. Our hardware doesn't change that fast. By the way, how much longer do we have?
30 more minutes. Can you do it?
Ooh,
Just tell
honey,
me.
can I go 30 more?
That's fine. I'm just gonna eat without you.
I'm sorry.
Without you.
Okay. Do you mind?
No, that's fine.
Okay, I can go.
Oh, good. Thank you. So the hidden question there, Rick, is it literally possible to multitask?
No.
Okay, onward and upward. What was the motive of the cave artist?
Self-amusement.
That's good. Self-amusement. What's the function of laughter?
To keep us breathing.
Keep us breathing. That is good. Gurdjieff said the function of laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no.
I mean, laughter is a really important thing, and laughter. I mean, I make a lot of jokes. I would sometimes tell people I'm the joke doctor. I can improve jokes and stuff like that. But really, what laughter is laughter comes about in the surprise in the juxtaposition between two things which you wouldn't think would normally be juxtaposed, and that is a learning experience there. So
Good.
it's actually really important.
That is you encompass all. That's Gurdjieff. Yes and no. And then Bob Dobbs taught me when you're laughing, you're learning. That's a good phrase. But being the joke doctor, Steve Allen's line McLuhan loved to quote: "Behind every joke, there's a grievance." Any comment?
Behind every joke, there's a realization.
Good. I like that. What's more important, Rick? Conviction or compromise?
Well, between people, compromise.
It's good. There's no
You
right or
can have,
wrong.
you can have conviction and still be able to compromise. You can't do the other way around.
Yeah. There's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right, Rick. Okay, you've accomplished a lot in your life. Rate these 3 elements: luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Skill, ambition, skill, luck, ambition.
Cool. T.S. Eliot said poetry's outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Music.
Nice. George Manupelli, one of my heroes, His mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me.
Right. Self only makes it worse.
Say it again.
Self only makes it worse. It can color it, but it's got to come from someone else.
Yeah, but let me just finish the question because you
I'm
almost
sorry.
answered. Yeah, but here it goes like this. Is art making more self-expression or more your vehicle for whatever technology, culture, or environments are dominant?
I don't know that sounds like an either or to me.
Yeah. You mean it's both?
Yeah.
But I'm saying which one would you lean is a little more? You think it's 50-50 both?
Well, for me, it's the first one and not very much of the second one at all. But I'm not a professional artist, so it's
Can
probably
art
different for them.
Can art making be egoless?
Art making can, but art sharing can't.
Art sharing?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can do an art in your room and no one ever sees it, and that's completely egoless. Okay, but if anyone else is going to get involved in this by looking into something, no, that can't be egoless. Something has to be done to make that happen.
Gotcha. Is perception reality?
For all intents and purposes.
Yeah. Why is it so difficult for humans to consider the possibility that life may be pointless?
I'm going to pass on that one.
That's good. I dropped that question for so long and I thought, well, Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
No. Obviously, if they were impossible, I wouldn't. Well, not obviously. Me personally, if they were impossible, I wouldn't believe them. I mean, stuff with a very small chance of possibility, yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't impact me that much. But if I really thought it was impossible, yeah.
Yeah. But you got to admit, it's sort of cool. Sun Ra got quoted in New Yorker magazine recently. The impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world didn't change.
Wow. That is a pretty self-absorbed viewpoint. But I know someone who played in his band, and I'm not surprised he said that.
Yeah. I think we were lucky that we got exposed to Sun Ra. He's a
Oh,
major guy.
He's this guy who played his band said there should be a statue to him.
Oh God, yeah.
But he
come
was
on,
also crazy.
Yeah, but he's like the king of Afrofuturism. He's getting in the New Yorker magazine. It's cool.
And had the greatest band. I mean, just the players were just unbelievable.
Yeah. So tell me one major element of your creativeness that's changed and one major element that stayed the same.
The thing that has stayed the same is taking the main reward I get from it is learning. That stayed the same.
Yeah.
Changed. I think to some extent change is because I have to, if I'm going to seek to communicate stuff, I have to make it different. I have to shape it so that people receiving the message can get it.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Keep speaking up a little. Your voice sort of went down a little. But we just got a few more. So Moshe Feldenkrais, Rick, he works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
I have no weakness. Hang on. Let me think about this one more seriously.
I've gotten that answer a couple times.
No, I think in some ways, fear of confrontation has been turned into understanding the other person's point of view. It's not an exact translation, but I think it's motivated by
No,
the same thing.
that's fear of confrontation into, yeah. No, I like that a lot. One of my favorite examples I tell people is Iggy Pop. He said, "My band was so bad imitating the Rolling Stones, we invented punk rock."
Yep.
Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
Never.
That is a great answer. Let me tell you, I used to say, can anger be a productive emotion? And people would just say yes or no. And I changed it. And so you
Yeah.
reverted and got back to that's really good. So this question is about satire, and we brought up laughter and joking. The question, I'm going to suss it out a little deeper, is can satire be destructive? Well, of course, satire can be destructive because if you do a cartoon in a certain country and they kill you, some people think dying is destructive. But Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. My friend wrote for Robin Williams, and I said, "Can satire be destructive?" And he says, "That's the job of satire." So basically, the question is, what's the function of satire?
Mm. The function of satire is to highlight certain aspects of an overall situation. But that's why it, in the wrong hands, can be really destructive and bad. You can highlight areas that shouldn't be taken out of context, and and given them more weight than they should. So satire is not always good, I don't think.
And so what you being a joke doctor, love that because I love to collect jokes, talk jokes. I love to explore comedy. Who were some of your comedy heroes growing up? Who influenced you to pursue, laughter?
Well, growing up, I mean, the classic comedian Steve Allen, obviously, uh,
Soupy
can't
sales.
remember, no, not Soupy Sales, but certainly I think when I got a bit older, the Fireside Theater, who were
Oh,
just
there
a
you go.
whole other level. It's funny, Jerry. I put their CDs on the other day and listened to them. It's like, wow. And my wife had never heard them because she's a little younger than me, and it was like, huh? Um,
Yeah.
I, I mean, obviously Richard Pryor, Stephen Wright. Uh,
Good.
the,
That gives me an idea because I've asked Phil Proctor all these same questions.
hmm,
And Peter Bergman used to come to the library where I go to a library every day, and he used to come in there, and I was like, "That's Peter Bergman coming to the library." He was amazing. But yeah, Fireside Theater is a huge influence in
and
what.
still, nobody has done it that well since. I mean, nobody.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you don't, do you get Planet Proctor or Proctor Planet? You get Phil
No.
Proctor's newsletter? Dude,
Mm-mm.
get it. It is amazing. You get like 5 jokes every couple months that you can just knock people's socks off with. And he's such a great guy. He's just super. I think you just go Planet Proctor and
Okay.
you just say put me on your list. What's the most significant difference between women and men, physical aside?
Culture, how they've been acculturated.
What caused matriarchy?
Probably division of labor.
Nice. I've never had that answer.
There's a very interesting book that came out called The Dawn of Everything.
Yeah.
By God, what's it? The Dawn of
I know.
Everything.
Yeah, I know about it.
Earth-shaking book, because what he talks about is we have this kind of linear idea that you started out with small tribes and they got bigger, then we moved architecture and blah blah blah. And they said, well, this all falls apart if you can prove that it's not linear. That in fact there were alternative organizations of society back hundreds and thousands of years ago, which they have a lot of evidence to point it out. And I think it's speculative, but it's interesting. They talk a lot about matriarchy there.
I'll check it out. I know about that book a little. It's come up in our discussion groups. And this next question, Rick, is you create what you resist. And I'm not saying you, Rick, I'm saying just in general, one creates what one resists. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So just your ideas, thoughts on this thought, you create what you resist.
I think this is something, for me, there's a different way to look at it, which is something that's so deeply embedded in your character that you take them for granted and therefore reject them. I mean, people who are very active say, I'm really very lazy. And it's not because they're lazy, but it's because their standard of activity is so high that for them, they're not active. So I think your deepest characteristics are so deeply embedded in you, it's very hard to see them independently, to judge yourself there. There are some areas which I think we just can't judge ourselves. They're too deeply embedded in our personalities. I think that's kind of what we're talking about.
Just about 10 more minutes, a couple more, Rick. Thanks again. These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head in a couple words. Who started it all?
Him.
Are we going to make it?
Yes.
Where do we put it?
Down.
Who's who's cleaning it up?
Doesn't have to be cleaned up.
Nice. I've never had that answer. Last one. Is it serious?
No, thank God.
All right. Yeah. Zappa said, I'm very serious about being not serious. Can you forget to die?
No, unfortunately.
Okay. Then we're not in the Alan Watts anymore. So here we go. A couple more. How do you find peace of mind?
By slowing down.
Nice.
It's hard. We all tend to get wrapped around the axle on certain things, and you just got to take some time.
It's hard. It's good. This is from Marcel Proust, in fact. On what occasion do you lie?
Never.
Wow. I thought you might appreciate Tom Waits. He says, I didn't know I needed an occasion.
Good line.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Pay attention.
Nice. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Over.
Dude, there's 20% of people who go under. Now, why over?
Because it's easier to get. I mean, you want to be scrambling back there this is kind of like so self-evident. Why is this even a question?
Well, that's the pitch on the patent is 110 years old. It shows it going over. But there's people who insist under. Sorry, it's a small percentage.
In public bathrooms, I'll flip it around. No, no.
That's good. If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Don't encourage him.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Cookies.
Oh, they want to have a color other than black ink on some of the pages. What color?
It's got to be green, right?
Green. If a
Oh,
statue was
my name.
yeah, Greenwald. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Ground level, leaning up against the building, some sort of metal, probably.
Cool. Rick, tell me something good you never had and you never want.
I think at this point in my life, I can say fame.
Fame, F-A-M-E? That's the three answers I get the most are money, fame, and heroin. Weird. If fame.
Wh-
If you were
wh-
in huh?
Go ahead.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Headbutt it.
Headbutt it. That's good. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Young people are starting to realize the importance of responsibility.
Well, how has that changed from our time? So how old is your daughter and how tell us what you learned from raising. Do you have more than one kid or just one?
Three.
3. What did you learn from raising children? And tell us about how did you teach them responsibility or,
Yeah.
tell us about
The most important thing is something I had heard before, but never really sunk into me is that a large percentage of parenting is just showing up,
Yeah.
being there for them. I almost never taught them things. Okay, I tried to set an example by being a good person, as I would whether I had children or not. I almost never said. I mean, there are less than a handful of things that I actually said, this, you have to do this. Okay.
Yeah.
But I look at my kids who, look, they're part of the zeitgeist to some extent, but two of them are really responsible. One of them is astonishingly responsible and astonishingly successful. And a lot of this is like, wow, what a coincidence that I got a kid who's like that. And I go like, actually, maybe I had a little something.
But Rick, do you think this attitude of being a good person, I love those 3 words, it's really beautiful, did you acquire that sensibility more from the way your parents raised you or more on your own?
I think to a large extent what my parents raised me. You were just supposed to do the right thing.
Yeah. Do you think longevity is more lifestyle choice or DNA?
Unfortunately, DNA and luck.
Yeah. Is
I'm
human
pretty
progress
lucky to be the age I am, and I'm still doing okay. So
yeah. Is human progress more cyclical or cumulative?
cumulative.
Yeah.
But there's a large cyclical element of it, but the cumulative does continue to advance.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like this cone that sort of spirals up and spirals down. Yeah. Utah Phillips says Anarchy is making rules for yourself, not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Depends on what the rules are impacting. Okay. I deeply believe that you have a ethical responsibility to do the right thing. Okay. Um, and as long as that doesn't affect other people, you 100% control those rules. But of course, not only are there it affects other people, that there's a continuum on how much it affects other people, right? So the higher you go up that continuum, the more that has to be made by some level of community.
3 more and we're out of here, Rick. Thank you so much.
Okay.
What's the difference between rights and responsibilities?
Rights are something you're given, responsibilities are something you assume.
Thornton Wilder said in 1928, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for an hour and a half. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
I really hope that I'm contributing to the overall human condition in a positive way.
Yeah, it's good. Last question. Thanks, Rick. What gives you the most optimism?
The indomitable nature of human beings.
Say it again. You broke up a little.
The indomitable nature of human beings.
Of human beings. Yeah. It's
I mean,
beautiful. The first,
we have seen in our lifetime and slightly before our lifetime, astonishingly horrible things happen, and we keep going.
yep. That's Zappa said, don't stop and keep going. And the first question I ask is, what gives you what's the best thing for a human being? I got it from my friend studied Wilhelm Reich. He says the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question is what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. What gives you the most optimism? And he said, other people. So it's sure been fun catching up with you, Rick. You're a great human being. It's inspired me deep in my heart. And I want to make the world a better place. And talking to somebody like you inspires me to do so. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, Jerry, is this recorded anywhere, by the way?
It's been live on YouTube. And as soon as we're done, it'll be on YouTube till the end of time.
Oh, cool. Send me a link if you don't mind.
Yeah, I will. I don't mind at all. And yeah, it's like I have to publicly thank you for turning me on in college to two amazing music groups, Little Feat and Weather Report. Both of them had huge impact on me, and it was just
I'm
something
I'm
that
I'm
stuck in my brain.
I'm very evangelical about music. Always have been. Still am.
Yeah. I know the one that I really blew, and I can picture you telling me this on that little walkover bridge to Alice Lloyd that you
Yeah.
went and saw Beefheart open for the Kinks. And I was like, why didn't I go to that show?
I have been listening to him a lot lately, and it's still you listen to him, it's like if this was made yesterday, it would have been mind blowing, you know. And it was made 40 years ago. I've been listening to a lot of Beefheart lately, a
Wait,
lot.
what album do you listen? What do you listen to? Which
My two favorite ones are Clear Spot and Spotlight Kid. Probably Clear Spot more than
yeah,
Spotlight Kid. Um,
yeah,
and a lot of his other stuff I haven't heard, but I just love those things so much. Although I
yeah.
understand, I'm just about to order his biography, and I understand he was nuts. Um,
No,
but
I've studied it all. Captain Beefheart, we call him Don. That's his name. He
yeah.
called me 52 times in 1991, once a week in the middle of the night. So I got to know him, and I've studied him deeply, and he's had a profound effect on my life.
Oh,
But
I
I always,
real Go ahead.
I always said Spotlight Kid was my favorite, and you're supposed to say Trout Mask, but it's because I had that poem on Alice Lloyd on my door. The stars are matter, we are matter, but it doesn't matter.
Right. And do you do this? You say, you want to hear a great guitar solo? Play Alice in Blunderland. I'm like,
dude, guess what? I just interviewed with all these same questions last week. Ira Ingberg, Elliot's brother. And Elliot, and I know Elliot. I've spent time with Elliot, but Elliot is in an elder's home now, or he's doing okay, but not great. And Elliot he's a huge influence. Don did not give very many solos, and that Alice in Blunderland is Elliot. You know, Elliot is a really important guitarist in the history of music. You know,
well,
Hendrix was, I'll tell you one little story. Hendrix was at a party with Elliot, and Hendrix's jaw was on the floor watching Elliot play.
yeah, I mean, he plays like this is from another planet. It's, you know, well, I'd love to talk to you about that more because I'm a massive geek.
Oh, anytime. I love to talk Don. Don is the best. Okay, Rick, this has been so fun. Thank you so much. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, but I hope this never ends.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.